Welcome, everyone. We are back with another episode of the You Are a Severance podcast. I am Callie Thomas. This is my co-host, Rodnesha Green.
Hiya.
And we are so excited for this episode. We have been talking about this since before this podcast was fully planned out. I can't wait.
This was the pivotal moment we were looking to get to. Like, this is the Mountain Pink moment. Defiant Jazz.
Yes. So today we are talking about episode 7 of season 1, Defiant Jazz. It is a glorious episode. And before we get into it, if you have been listening along with us this whole time, you'll know that Rodnesha has been our resident music person, pulling in all of the clues and hints that the music is pointing to. So I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about jazz and Defiant Jazz specifically. So do you have anything to tell us, Rodnesha?
Well, I have several things to say. No, I'm just kidding. Let me just, for the record, say 2 things. One, I especially love this episode because music is everything in this episode, which we will point out. There's so many things that they do to align the music with what's going on and use that as a storytelling device, and I love it. 2, I am not a jazz expert. I just want to put that out there. I'm sure there's some people that are just going to, when I start talking, going to be like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And to some degree, you're right. I'm more of a symphonic orchestra kind of gal. But what I did want to talk about, so I found the title interesting, Defiant Jazz. Anyone who knows anything about jazz would probably say Defiant Jazz is like a hat on a hat.
Mm.
Like, jazz is inherently defiant. So saying defiant jazz is kind of like saying sad blues. But I find it interesting that it is called Defiant Jazz. And that made me go on a little exploration about jazz and the history of jazz, because that's more my wheelhouse, like the historical side of things. So I don't know exactly what necessarily makes jazz jazz, other than it is more extemporaneous, more improvisation based.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people historically had issues with jazz because it didn't ascribe to the formulaic nature of most music. There was even an article that I saw at one point that was like, you can't dance to it. Like, that was an argument that people had for jazz as a genre, which I think Mr. Milchick proves in this episode that that is not true.
Oh, Milchick has the moves.
If you know what you're doing, you can. But what is unique about jazz, and what I recall from my own historical knowledge, and then when I was looking it up, is jazz has always been parallel to movements in culture, especially within the Black community, oppressed communities. Jazz has kind of been the sound of resistance and like a freedom cry from oppression. And it's kind of interesting how jazz does not fall within the prescribed lines and measures of what makes music formulaic to a degree. And that's somewhat why it became like this rallying cry sound historically for a lot of historical movements and civil rights movements. So I just wanted to read some quotes to you.
Got quotes
about, what people have to say about jazz. This is coming from an article that's entitled, "What Makes Jazz the Revolutionary Music of the 20th Century, and Will It Be the Revolutionary Music for the 21st Century?" The author, in his opening paragraph, writes, "Oppressed peoples suffer when their history, identity, and culture are defined, misrepresented, and explicated by our oppressors. The struggle to redefine and re-image our existence involves the struggle to reject the stereotyping, distortions, and devaluation embodied in the classifications of conquerors and racists. The struggle over how to describe past and present reality is the struggle to change reality, and the continued usage of the term jazz persists in the marginalizing, obfuscating, and denying of the fact that this music is quintessentially American music. However, it is the music of an American oppressed nationality and not the music of the dominant. It is white supremacist racism that will not properly and justly accept both the music and its creators in a position of equality." So this article is basically denoting how jazz was rejected And it's like, well, who's doing the rejecting, and who is it that gets to define what is music and what is jazz? And it does indicate in the article that jazz is inherently American because it is about breaking out of systemic oppressive boundaries. That is America. There's another article that I found about an artist who's actually a Southeast Asian jazz musician. The musician's name is Vijay Iyer. So the interviewer is asking him, what is jazz all about and what do you think it is? And Vijay says, I think that word gets used and overused and misused and kind of caricatured. I think of this music styling as the history of a people and the history of ideas, a history of defiance, a history of unity, a history of joy and transcendence, and also a history of responding to conditions of oppression and terror. So I always think about my relationship to that history as a South Asian American, and I try to honor that history when playing this music. The last thing I wanted to state that he quotes, the interviewer was asking Vijay if he thinks that this music is having a resurgence particular to the times that we're living in. And he says, I think that there's a history of defiance in jazz. When I talk to my students about it, I kind of frame it as a history of community organizing because it was about people coming together in pretty dire circumstances in the past, sort of against all odds, and coming together to create beauty and change the world. So I found that interesting because this all comes out in the midst of this looming world of oppression and terror.
Yeah.
So it's very much a metaphor. Point being, jazz is defiance, but jazz is unity. There's a coming together element, but there is a defiance
Right.
element. It's like we're not going to conform, but we are going to unify to elevate. And again, I just find it very interesting and unique and fun that that is the title of this episode. That's kind of the penultimate point in this episode. Is like this jazz moment where jazz kind of weasels its way into the narrative and pushes our characters over the edge. And I just wanted to call some special attention to jazz and its
Yeah.
historical relevance in the way of breaking barriers.
Good quotes. Nice. Good research.
Thanks. Thanks.
Sidebar. I am currently on Japanese jazz TikTok. Have you ventured over? Have you gotten any of these TikToks in your timeline?
Didn't know that even existed.
Well, speaking of, there's a whole slew of Japanese jazz artists throughout the 70s, from popular jazz artists being brought over there during American occupation, and it's kind of in the similar that people in Japan kind of using it for the same reasons and knowing that history and using it in the same ways. And for whatever reason, as TikTok loves to do, someone random will post something old and then it'll start trending. So I've been getting all of these TikToks where people are like, why does this Japanese jazz go so hard? But it's good. It's really good. It's really
You are
good.
going to have to send me something because yes, I did not know that this was a thing. You know, I never know what's trending on TikTok. I'm so out the loop, but I would love to hear that. Yeah.
But
Well,
with that,
guys, go check out Japanese jazz TikTok after you listen
after
to
you listen to
our
the
episode.
podcast. Yeah.
Exactly.
So with that, let's get into the summary.
We are going to get into it. This is episode 7, Defiant Jazz. Last week, a question was posed in the episode: does love transcend severance? Well, this week, I'd like to posture this question: can music transcend severance? I guess we'll find out, because this week the hits just keep on coming, musically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of it. We start with Ragabi and Mark on a dark, murky college campus. They go down to the basement depths of this campus, and Ragabi attempts to enlighten Mark to both Petey's situation as well as his own. Graner unfortunately shows up unexpectedly and is greeted by the broadside of a baseball bat. Yep, he is dead. Rest in peace. and we are off to the races. Speaking of, Mark races home to dispose of his tainted clothes and gets caught by Alexa, who is still in his bed and who at this point should be more than fed up with Mark's brand of crazy. They eventually talk and part ways, probably for the best. And now it's a brand new day, baby, complete with new doors on MDR floor. Milchick has a busy morning ahead of him. He's party planning. He's doing escort services. He's got to be a security stand-in. He's leading the conga line. I mean, this is just to name a few things. Hopefully, this man has banked some significant PTO with all the running around he's doing because he's going to need that R&R. Meanwhile, Cobell gets a little closer to Devin in hopes of getting more intel on Mark. And it looks like Cobell is missing out on all the fun at work because it is party time at Lumen. Baby MDR is going to get an MDE to celebrate Helly's 73% completion on her file, while O&D is going to get a melonlicious soiree to send off their beloved and suddenly retired Bert G. But with every party comes a party pooper, and Dylan and Irving are coming in hot. Milchick is dancing, he's in the groove, but that dancing's getting a little long in the tooth for Dylan, and Irving finds nothing to smile at during Bert's retirement party. In fact, he prefers to mouth off instead. You guys love all these puns? They're coming in hot. Anyway, it's a bad day to be Seth Milchick. But all is not lost for our heroes as a rainbow appears in their midst in the form of the overtime contingency protocol and the mysterious appearance of an all-access key card in Mark's pocket. The MDR team begins to formulate a plan on how the innies can get a taste of that sweet, sweet outside Lumen life. And by the end of the episode, everyone, including Lumen apologist Irving, is on board the Get Out Express. Choo choo.
Woohoo! It's another wild ride, guys.
Another wild ride.
So let's get into these cast details this week. We've got some returning guest stars. Natalie, played by Sydney Cole Alexander. Rigabi, played by Karen Aldridge. Mr. Graner, played by Michael Cumsty, and Alexa is still here, Alexa, played by Nikki M. James. And then we have some recurring co-stars as well. Elizabeth, played by Rachel Addington, Keir Egan, played by Mark Geller, Felicia, played by Claudia Robinson, and Judd, good old Judd, the security guard,
Good old
played
Judd.
by Mark Kenneth Smaltz. This episode is written by Hannah Lee. I think is this another first? Have we seen this name
Helen Lee.
in an earlier episode?
I think she's a first. I think this is a
so
first
there's
time for her as a lead writer.
a lot
I
of
don't think
turn
we've seen
taking
it.
on the staff writing, which is awesome. So she's the lead writer, and then Dan Erickson and Anna O. Young Munch, of course. And then this episode is directed by Ben Stiller.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. I bet he was like, dibs on this episode. Gotta direct.
Like, y'all, nope. I'll hand off others, but Defiant Jazz is mine. It's mine. I call dibs. But I mean, all the direction has been great, honestly. But this is just chef's kiss, and we'll get to it. In fact, let's just start getting into it right daggone now.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, y'all. Cold open. These cold opens have been
they are just so
much.
And what's wild is because it's on streaming, we get the cold open and then it's immediately into that the opening credits. And if you're like us, you watch the opening credits every time. You skipping.
Sure do.
No skipping that sequence.
No skipping.
But I was just thinking about it. I was like, if I had to watch this on regular TV and see a commercial right now, my heart would be palpitating.
You're right.
I'd be like, because it just throws you in there and then there's no time to catch up. It's just right on to the next stuff, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
I feel like if the medium were different, these cold opens would be way different. I could see the cold open being Milchick showing up early to test the doors and then, giving them a close and walking off, and then it cuts to credit music and then commercial. Like, I don't think they would do this Rigabi scene. No way. There's just no way. That'd be too intense. Too intense. Well, guys, the cold open is, yes, with Rigabi and Mark. We pick up immediately where we left off, where Rigabi is walking away and she's basically like, you can come or you cannot, your call. What I find interesting about the scene, and I have to just jump into it right now, this scene almost seems like a reset, a mirror, a parallel, whatever you want to call it, to the very first scene we get in this show. The first thing we hear someone say is Mark saying, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
Which is exactly how we open this season.
Mhm.
And then we're going down into the depths, the basement of this college,
Right.
which basically mirrors going down the severance floor, having no clue what's going on, complete anonymity. It's all there. It all connects. If you guys can see if you guys have watched Always Sunny in Philadelphia and you've seen the Charlie poster with the threads, they're like tying all together. It all connects. That's how I felt in that moment when I heard that. I was like, oh, it's all tying back. It's all connecting. It's happening. It's like a spider web. So I just thought that was so brilliant to again reset that moment, but in the outside world, we're having it. And it again is all centered around Mark.
Right.
So he's getting to have that moment again in his Audi form, where someone is just kind of leading him, not answering his questions, not, giving him what he wants until they position him where they want him to be. So
Yeah.
kind of wild. So Ragabi and Mark are down in the basement talking. I hope she does not live here. I hope she just comes here to either meet people or work, because this basement is sketch. Everything looks cobwebbed and dusty. I'm pretty sure there's rats down there. So I hope this is not like a PD situation where she's hiding out in the basement of
Yeah.
colleges.
I don't think she's staying there. I think she's doing procedures or
She
something
looks a little
there.
too put together to be staying in the basement of a college. So
Right. Yeah. True.
but for a second, I was just kind of like, I hope she's not living there. So anyway, they start talking. They have another back and forth, kind of similar to the back and forth he had with Petey about not knowing if he even wants to be deactivated. And I get to live my life. My innie gets to live their life. And that's great and fine. And Ragabi basically reads him and it's just like, oh, yeah, sure. Maybe it is great. Maybe your Audi isn't desperate to claw his way to the surface and breathe fresh air and know what life is like outside this office. Maybe you're right. Maybe he loves it. Maybe it's great.
But you'll never know.
You will never know.
Mm.
And that kind of gets to Mark. But before we can see him act on that, good old Mr. Graner shows up. Now, I'm pretty certain he heard who Mark was talking to, had to.
Yeah.
But he just starts by talking to Mark and asks Mark if he's talking to someone. Big mistake on his part, because that gives Ragabi time to sneak around the back, grab a baseball bat, and clock homeboy upside his head. Not once, not twice, like 3-4 times. Him dead. Him very, very dead. And again, this is a cold open, you
Yep.
guys. Like, this is how we're starting the episode. Murder. Murder. Now, Ragabi obviously knows Graner. Mark doesn't. Clearly, Ragabi recognizes him as a threat and does not want to err on any side of caution, taking any kind of chances. She's just like, no, we execute. He's gone. No questions.
Yeah.
Mark freaks out, rightfully so. I'm sure he's never been involved in a homicide before. Um, so he's, seeing blood, he's seeing a body, he's seeing homegirl just recklessly with no abandon pull key cards out his pockets and drag his body off to the side. Mark is freaking out. And again, not surprised by that at all. But she essentially assures him to take the key card. She lets him know that it's all access, it's untraceable, and to just take it with him to work and he'll know what to do with it. And Mark's like, who's he? And she's like, you, dummy.
You.
Like,
Yeah.
you will know. And that's the end of that.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that Mark almost blows chunks all over the body. And then she's like, please don't do that. Your DNA is all up in that.
Right.
Do not leave evidence behind. So what does he do? He just goes and throws up outside in the alley, just outside the door. And I'm like, good grief. You could have at least gone to the bushes or something.
But important information in their conversation before Mr. Graner comes down. So at this point, we know she's someone from Lumen. We know she helped PD. She hasn't given any information, but she explains that she is the person who installs the severance chips.
Yes.
And she is the only one who has the capability to turn them off. She also reveals that PD didn't die from reintegration. PD died because he flipped out and ran away and didn't follow his post-op instructions. So that leads us to believe that it is possible to reintegrate and not have the same fate as PD if you can remain calm and keep your wits about you
Right.
through all the symptoms of it, and follow the instructions that she has laid out. And it makes me wonder, was Petey the first one she tried this on, or has she done some other type of tests, like, I don't know, maybe like with Miss Cobell and her rat in the pilot script? Maybe she's tested reintegration on other things first before human trials. I'm not
Well,
sure.
I'm pretty sure Petey mentioned in that episode that there were others who had been reintegrated, I believe.
I can't remember.
Now, how many others is a different question. And like you said, how that process started, I don't know, but that's funny that you bring up the rat from the pilot. That pilot script is going to linger. It's going to linger so long.
But then also it makes me wonder, and I almost did this, but I didn't have the time, but I wanted to go back to episode 2 and see if they show a face of someone who's in the operating room for Helly, because we see
I looked.
oh, you did look. So it's not her.
I
So
looked.
I'm like, how long has
Well,
she been gone?
it's not her. I definitely remembered because I knew this was coming.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I wanted to watch that episode to see, like, was she the one that implanted Helly's chip? She is not. There's a woman in there, but it's not a Black woman. And the man that's operating on her is like maybe of Asian descent or something,
Okay.
but it's not.
Okay, yeah. So I
Nobody
wonder
Black
how
is up there.
long Ragabi has been gone too. Did she leave the same time as Petey or what?
That's a good question.
Yeah, she's still a mystery.
Ah, man, there's so many questions. And I'm hoping all of this will come out, or maybe it'll come out in the next episode or two, because there's a lot of things regarding like Petey's leaving that now we can start diving into a little more.
Mhm.
But I feel like she had to get out a little bit ahead of Petey to be a touch point for him. But my question is,
Right.
were they working together at some point, or did she start sending people to be like inside men for her? Because when Graner and Cobell start talking about Ragabi, it's almost like they know she's been out there, but maybe she's been quiet. Like there's been no echoes of her like outright deactivating people or, doing stuff. Like they kind of know she's out there, but they don't know what she's up to. And then the PD thing kind of throws it into high gear of like, oh, she's out there reintegrating folks.
Yeah, maybe she's been gone for a while and has only been doing this for people who have already left
Left Lumen,
Lumen.
maybe so.
Yeah, so like they would have no reason to know. Like if someone retires, gets reintegrated, I'm sure their reintegrated self would be smart enough not to go back to Lumen for any reason or say
Yeah.
anything or ruffle feathers. But Petey was in the process of reintegration while he was still working there. So, I'm sure giving off tips and signs that something wasn't right.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
wonder, my question is if Ragabi was one of their, because my imagining is that whatever iteration of the chip they have, she may have been responsible for designing it.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's just about her being the surgeon. I think she created it and knows how it works.
Right.
And that's why she knows how to undo it.
Yeah.
So my question is, how is she able to leave Lumen and be alive?
Right.
And just be
Right.
out
Yeah.
there,
If she has that
right?
proprietary information, how is she gone? Or maybe they've been looking for her this whole time. Maybe she's also on the run.
Maybe. Because I wouldn't imagine or wouldn't think that they could just easily let her go. And then I would have to imagine that also means that she's never been severed.
Mhm.
Because if she was, I'm sure they would have the reins on keeping her there. And she wouldn't know what she does anyway. So my thought must be she's unsevered.
Yeah.
Or not, she was never severed, and she just decided she was done with this and just never came back.
Right.
And like you said, went on the lam.
And also because she's the only person who can reintegrate it, like you said, that leads us to think that she created it. So like what other dummies did they have working under her that never figured out that it's something that can be undone? Because the board seems to be adamant that it can't be undone, and yet here she is doing it.
The only thing I can think is that because they didn't want it to fall into too many hands, maybe they were just like, she's the only one who gets to fiddle fart around with all this.
Yeah.
outside of like top people at Lumen, like executives or the Egans or whoever. They probably thought we keep this in the hands of one person to keep anything getting out or getting spread around.
Well,
And
then
then,
how did they train the person who had to replace her?
I mean, has anyone replaced her?
Well, yeah, because someone installed
Well,
help.
what I'm saying is, I think it's one thing to be able to implant the chip, not necessarily know how it works.
Okay.
So they may have surgeons, and it's just like, you just have to shove it in this neural pathway and just make sure it's in there. There's probably people that know how to implant it,
Yeah.
but not necessarily how it's activated, what the inner schematics of how it connects to the brain, or I don't know. That's just my thought.
And it makes me wonder too, if they were able to scan PD's chip and get traces of it and get proof that it had been reintegrated, I wonder why they haven't figured out how to reverse engineer and figure out how the reintegration is happening yet. Maybe they're working on it.
I'm sure. I wouldn't be surprised if Ragabi, when she was there, told them like nothing's foolproof.
Yeah.
You know, at this point, there's not necessarily a way to completely 100% assure that reintegration is impossible. And they probably were like, we can't let people know that. So, as far as you're concerned and we're concerned, there's no such thing.
Right.
I could easily see that being the case. Like,
Yeah.
how are we going to get people on board severance if we don't tell them that it's 100% guarantee? And I think I even thought to myself too, I was recently thinking about the show Dope Sick. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a great show.
Love that show.
It kind of reminded me of all the misinformation that got Oxycontin to be so widespread. People were just saying like, oh yeah, you can't get addicted. There's no withdrawals. It's 100% effective. It's 100% safe. Like literally all these blanket statements of like, oh no, this isn't like other narcotics. This one's completely, addiction free. 100%. It's been tested. No questions asked. And everyone's just like, okay. Like it sounds like that for this, where it's like, oh yeah, it's 100% guarantee. The science is there. And it's like, well, can I see the science? No, you cannot. Just trust that it's
No,
there.
you cannot. Just take our word for it.
Yep. Just put this chip in your head and trust that it's all good. So I feel like it's that kind of thing where she, as a scientist, I'm sure is like, y'all, the brain is a pretty intricate thing. And I don't know that we can guarantee with absolute certainty you can't reintegrate.
Right.
Or maybe because of what was going on, maybe she built it in a way kind of like the Death Star. Like maybe she built a redundancy into it, like break in cases of emergency, in case this falls into the wrong hands, here's how you can undo the whoopsie. So
yeah, I think it was like a contingency plan for herself.
And she may not have told anyone, but yeah, there's a lot of mystery around Ragabi, and I'm hoping we're gonna get more because I need to know.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. Well, moving on.
That's cold open, guys. Moving on.
That's the cold open. Again, it's always so much in the cold open. But so after that, Mark races home to change his clothes and dispose, like following Ragabi's instructions. And he forgot, like a dummy, that Alexis stayed over at his house. So Alexis walks out and is just like, hey, where you been? And he's like, oh, I just needed to get some water, even though he's standing there like in his boxers because he's just like thrown a bunch of his clothes in the in the trash. And she's like, no, I've been up for an hour. I heard your car. Where'd you go? And he can't think of a good lie. He's just like, I needed some air. I don't know. And she's like, you're being really weird. He just witnessed a murder, y'all. He's shaken up. He doesn't know what to say. So she's just like, well, do you want me to go? Like, was this too much too soon? And he's like, maybe. So she feels hurt, even though she's a dummy that should have known that. Should have known it was way too much for him.
Even without the murder.
Right? He's definitely not ready. Without the murder, he's not ready for this. Not ready for sleepovers. So the next morning, he like takes his trash out bright and early with his clothes and his shoes. And Miss Selvig comes out, nosy, as always, and it's like, good morning, Mark. Like, you're disposing of your trash early? You usually do it in the early afternoon. And he's like, oh, just wanted to get a, jump on the day. And it's just like, why do you know all of this man's habits?
All of his
why
business.
not get weirded out when you point out his habits to him like that? Because I feel like this has happened before. Like, what Why are you watching my every move, lady?
Right. I'm gonna need you not to know my trash schedule. That's a little too invasive.
Yeah, it's a little much. But then she says one of my favorite things, because it's starting to snow during this. And she said, Jack Frost certainly needs a new dandruff shampoo.
Oh gosh.
And she chuckles to herself. And Mark's face is just kind of like, yeah, sure.
Y'all, she is laughing hard at that joke. Like she delighted herself genuinely. Oh my gosh. Sidebar. Do we know what day it is?
I don't know. I don't know what day it is.
Here's my question. This is why. She says you usually dispose of your waste in the early afternoon. How? If it's a weekday, his severed butt is at work. He's not taking out trash.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not possible. I feel like whoever wrote that line didn't think it through. Because if it's a work day, no, he's not taking his trash out in the early afternoon. He's not coming home for lunch breaks.
Right.
And the reason why I think it must be a work day is because he's clearly in a suit and tie.
Yeah, he's on his
about to leave.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Huh.
I think that was a whoopsie on the writer's part because I'm like,
I think so.
That don't align.
It would have made more sense if she said you usually take your trash out in the
early evening. Yeah.
But yeah, she's, nosing around again. And she's like, you look troubled, Mark. What's going on? Maybe you should come over. We could talk about it with tea. And he's like, I'm just going to see how the day goes, lady. Like, too much. Pump the brakes.
Mark is like, listen, lady, I've had quite the night. All right. I just got lucky for the first time and I don't know how long, and then I ruined it by participating in a murder. Like I can't have tea with you today. I just can't.
Yeah, it's a lot. So then while this is happening, Milchick is at MDR earlier than all of the MDR staff arrive so that he can check the new doors that were installed the night before. And let me tell you, his check of the doors is excessive. Like he is watching it open, watching it close, steps inside, watching it open, watching it close, step back outside. It just reminds me when my family went to Jamaica years ago and we were at this like all-inclusive and we were going to watch a show and somebody was mic checking for the show. And it was the longest mic check I've ever seen. He was like, mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It was like, how high you count during the mic check? And it was hilarious.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16,
right.
17.
Mic check. You ready? Ready for the show? Can you hear me? We're like, yes, but you are not the entertainment, sir. Get off. The mic works. We hear you.
We hear you. Yeah, the only thing I can think is he's like anticipating these fools are probably going to try some kind of nonsense to get out of here. Yep. So let me just, if I were a kid and I was trying to get out of a locked room, right, what would I do? Key card. You would
like, a bunch of times. Yeah.
But it is funny to watch because, yeah, it's not just a simple like, oh, my key card works. He's just like, again.
Right.
Again.
So then after he checks the doors, he goes to the toilet stall that Dylan said he hid the ideographic card from O&D behind, and he gets the card and then he goes to take it back to O&D. And he sees Bert's working on something and he's kind of like inquiring about why he's there so early, and I hope it's not to take me to another visit to the break room. So we realize, oh no, they took poor Bert to the break room. Oh no, not Bert. And Milchick's just like, here's the card back. I brought it back to you. It's called 7199G, 7199G card.
The way that Christopher Walken says it too, he's like, oh, the 7199G card. No, Oliver will be wonderfully delighted. I too am delighted. Like, it's just like, what?
But yeah, so Milchick's just like, no, you deserve something special. And that's when Bert is like, wait, I hope it's not the break room again. He's like, no, something else. But it sounds sinister, of course. It's like, is it something special? What's about to be?
And Bert rightfully like kind of has a face too, like, oh Lord, what? Like, he clearly doesn't trust what it is. Like, I don't know that it is so great.
Right.
I don't know that I can trust what you say. but what choice do I have? So he's
Yeah.
just kind of like, all right.
Right.
Oh gosh. Milchick is just, man, dastardly. Just
Yeah.
dastardly.
But the idea of Bert in the break room makes me so sad.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. Same.
oh, Bert. Oh, this sweet old man.
I just wonder for a lot of these folks how often they've been to the break room.
Right.
Because if we're thinking in terms of kids, you have some kids that like you just got to punish them every single time they do something because they're just not going to get it.
Right.
And then you have some kids that are like, you punish them one time and they're like, I'm never doing anything wrong ever again, ever, because I don't like being punished. I don't want to,
Yeah.
you know?
And also, there are kids who just see somebody else get the punishment and that's enough.
True.
Like, I don't ever want to do that. So let me not.
True. So I just wonder, like, Bert doesn't strike me as someone who gets punished often.
Right.
So I wonder in the life of his Lumen career, how often he's actually been to the break room.
Right.
If he's ever been to the break room, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Is this like a new corruption because of his interminglings with Irving? Like maybe he hasn't been in all this time and now this is his
Like,
first
I'm
time.
gonna risk it
That
all.
would be
Gonna risk it
terrible.
all.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know, but just the way he responded to it makes it seem like not that anyone wants to go to the break room, but it seems like some people are kind of anticipating it more than
Right.
others. Like, yeah, here we go again. And he's just like, no, not a,
Right.
please don't do another, you know?
Please, please don't.
Poor little sad face. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. And the way too he like cuts in on his work, he's like, may I look at, I don't know what Bert was working on. It was something with Kier, because you see him like through the little spyglass look like
Yeah.
doing some
Like
kind of restoration.
restoring.
But
Mhm.
just he just seems so uncomfortable around Milchick. I just felt bad. I was like, oh, poor guy.
Yeah, and Felicia is in the room too, and she looks like nervous as all get out too, like just watching the exchange.
Felicia seems like you said, the kid who sees someone else get in trouble is like, like, she's like,
Nope.
I don't see
Won't be
nothing. I'm not
me.
saying nothing.
I am
I'm
not
just
the
over here
one,
minding
sir.
my business. Mm-mm. Well, we move right along to the rest of the floor. It's time for all the MDR folks to show up to work. Sidebar, I thought it was interesting to see that O&D was there as early as Milchick, because I think timeline wise, I think the MDR folks don't start showing up till 9. So is O&D there at 8, 8:30? But they clearly are there before MDR because he went and checked on them before grabbing everybody off the elevator.
Yeah, the timelines are not consistent at all, though.
Mm.
They're like,
Well, oh, I did think about this. They aren't, but I do think O&D may come in earlier. Two, I thought about this the other day too, because I've been so stuck on who comes in when.
yeah,
And I started thinking back on what you're saying, and I was like, maybe it is a matter of like, maybe they have assigned times, but it's like if somebody gets there before you, then you gotta wait. I just wonder how that works to keep
yeah,
people from running into each other, because clearly who gets there first and who gets there last keeps changing.
right.
So I don't know if it's one of those things where like from the car you call and say, hey, I'm on campus, it'll take me about 2 minutes to get to reception, and they're like, you got to wait there another 5 minutes, we already have somebody at the desk.
Right.
Like, it's a lot of hoops.
Yeah, I think it's got to be some kind of like check-in call when you arrive, and we'll
Yeah.
let you know if you're ready to come in. It's clear to come in now, or you got to sit for 15 minutes. You'll get the next time slot.
Yeah.
First come, first serve for every 15-minute time slot. So like you hit an extra red light and you're like, shit, it's gonna be 9:20. So I know I won't get in until
Yeah.
30. I don't know.
Must be, because at this point the first one in is Dylan,
Yeah.
who I don't think we've ever seen him be the first, or maybe he has been, I don't know.
No.
But Mark's the last person, and Mark's the team department leader. So it's like,
Yeah.
I thought you were supposed to be in before everybody else. I'm so
Yeah.
confused.
Sometimes he's there first, sometimes he's not. And we know Dylan, he's first today, but we also know that in previous episodes, he wasn't the first to leave too. So again, it's kind of like, how do their hours work?
Yeah.
Because if it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to clock out now. So then the next person who wants to leave has to wait 15 more minutes. But if you got there before that person, like, aren't you working overtime at that point? I don't know.
Still haven't figured it out. But yeah, I just came to the conclusion that I was like, okay, there must be some kind of call system where it's like, call us when you get to the parking lot, stop when you get to reception, like just to for all the checks and balances. But I would
Yeah.
think they would be more hard up about time.
Yeah.
Like you said, you have a 15-minute window in which to get here. And if you don't arrive within that 15-minute window, you have to wait till the next 15-minute interval or whatever the case. Because, like, they don't give enough clearance room for people to get there, get inside, get to their locker, and get
Yeah.
down. Everyone's staggering in 5-minute intervals. And I'm like, how?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, it's not a lot.
Anyway.
But yeah.
Sorry, sidebar, guys. So Dylan's the first to arrive, and Milchick is right there at the elevator, which Dylan is very surprised and caught off guard by for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
Number one, that's not the norm for Milchick to be there. And number two, he just had that run-in with him in Audi Dylan's home. So
he did elevator, closet, elevator instead of elevator, elevator. So he's still like trying to figure out,
what just
was
happened?
I just at my house? Like, what is happening? And then here Milchick is again, right in his face again, back at Lumen.
That's got to be disorienting.
Yeah.
So he naturally comes in very caustic, like, what's going on? What was that all about? Was that my kid just having all these questions? And Milchick's just like, Dylan, he's just trying to keep calm, like, so we had to employ what we call the overtime contingency protocol. It's not a big deal. We had to do that, and we only do it in emergencies. And I would appreciate it if you don't tell your coworkers and just forget about your son. Okay.
He's like, I can put in an extra word for you for a waffle party for special perks. And it's like, bro, I just found out that I have a son. You won't tell me his name. I don't care about a waffle party anymore.
Waffles.
Like, I do not care.
It is interesting how quickly Milchick tries to shift him back into that persona of like being perks driven.
Yeah.
And try to gloss over this whole kid thing. And it's like, homie, if you have any ounce of psychology understanding, probably the first thing you should have done was said, put Dylan in wellness.
Right.
Okay, Willen, I arranged a wellness session for you today. I know that this OTC was kind of jarring, and I'm sure you are trying to process through some things. I want you to sit with Miss Casey and have some time to just like feel out your feelings, and I'll make sure to have a nice egg bar waiting for you when you come back into MDR,
Right.
or blah blah blah. Like, coddle him or something, because he's not going to switch back immediately to, ooh, my whole life is finger traps and caricature portraits and whatever the crap. Like, homie, just think somewhat rationally.
Right. It makes me think back to when Milchick was prepping Mark for Helly's return after being away from the suicide attempt. And he was coaching him on how to be like warm and inviting. And it was like, up until this point, it seemed like Milchick was the only one who had any semblance of people skills. But then it was like people skills out the door, complete hit and a miss, like swing and a miss. I mean,
the only reason I feel like it probably is that way, because that was true, is because he realizes he stepped outside the parameters of his boundaries. He took a leap outside. He didn't tell Cobell, and he tells Dylan that, like, I didn't tell Miss Cobell because she's stressed and she's got enough on her plate and blah, blah, which is all CYA, like it has nothing to do with her being stressed and everything to do with him trying to like take charge over a situation that got out of his hands, and he's trying to keep all the plates spinning. So it clearly is like, I can't sit and do the people skills thing normally because I'm trying to do stuff beyond my purview, but like, Cobell would be doing. And he immediately, once he escorts Dylan in, calls Cobell to be like, where are you? Like, and you clearly, he's freaking out, because then you realize that he also knows that Graner hasn't showed up, which clearly Graner must show up around the time that he usually does. So he's like, Graner hasn't checked in. Nobody knows where he is. Don't freak out, but just wanted to let you know we haven't seen him and we don't know where he is. And also, the doors and
I'm freaking out. But I got everything under control. I just think
it's fine. Should
be here, but I have it. But maybe come in.
But maybe get here, but don't rush. But maybe hurry. And
he's all over the place. He's definitely panicked.
Yeah. This is definitely Milchick off tilt. He's really grasping at straws, and we'll see that continue as a pattern through the episode. So we see that he's escorting everybody. Like, that's now going to be the protocol. He has to let everybody in because the doors only open and close with certain access cards and not what MDR has. So he's got to let everyone in, close them in, get him
Yeah.
situated. The way he treats Mark when Mark comes in, he has so much passive aggressive disdain at Mark right now. And he walks him in, tells him to sit down. Mark's like, and he's like, nope, you want coffee? Got it. 2 creams, 2 sugars. I'm on it. Like, sit your butt down.
Right. He's like,
do not move.
You're their department head. You're the worst of them all. You can't do nothing. I'm not even gonna let you get your coffee.
Right? And then the way he puts it on his desk and he's like, fresh from the hills of Rwanda. Like, so aggro. And even Mark kind of looks at him like, what the hell's your problem?
Chill out. It's not that serious.
And everyone's looking at Mark too, like, what's going on? And he's like, I don't know. And Milchick's just being weird and they're being locked in. And it's just so like kids in timeout. It's so
very much.
And I feel like the way Milchick is coming at him too is like, you over here making my life more difficult than it needs to be. Thanks to you, I got to babysit like more than I normally do. He had zero tolerance for any of it today. Oh boy. Yeesh. Anywho, we see that Cobell, while everybody's trying to figure out where she is, she's with Devin doing a lactation consult and, has this weird looking fake baby, like one of those super realistic babies.
The creepiest fake baby though, because he has like an old man munchkin face. Doesn't look like a baby. He looks like an old man, and then his like hair is like really straw straight, sticking all over the place. Like, you have not taken care of this doll at all.
No,
I mean, he kind of looks angry too.
And then the way she like throws it to the side after she like fake breastfeeds it.
Yeah, she's like, okay, over here, talk.
Anyway, your turn. So Devin successfully gets her baby to latch and everybody's excited. And then we see that Selvig's just kind of hanging out now. Like, clearly they've done the feeding, but now she's just sitting there. They're kikiing and telling jokes and having coffee and all this other stuff. So this is Selvig's prodding time where she's trying to find out more about like Mark and his wife and how do you think Mark's feeling? Why do you think Mark decided to be severed? And do you think Mark ever sees his wife? Sometimes I used to think I saw my late husband all over town. And do you think that Mark feels that way? Mark? I would think Devin would. I don't know. I'm surprised nobody's picking up on the weirdness of her asking so many questions.
Well, I mean, to me, she is kind of picking up on it, but it just kind of stops there. So I think it's just assumed that maybe Devin comes up with an excuse to end it after that. But like, she tries to bring up severance, right? Because she's telling Mrs. Selvig about her theory about Gabby, possibly, but she's like too afraid to say it out loud. But she's implying like, what if you wanted to have a kid, but you wanted to, like
not know you.
And Mrs. Selvig / Cobell just kind of brushes it off and says, I forget who she said. Cary Grant himself or something. I wouldn't
Humphrey
remember.
Bogart. I don't remember.
Yeah, some classic actor. And so I wouldn't remember him after I just given birth, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, severance. Why did Mark get severed? And like she swings it there. And I think when she asks, does he think he sees his wife anywhere? Devin kind of makes a face. Like she doesn't answer and she just kind of makes a face like,
what kind of question is that?
This is the third question in a row. Like, and that's a very specific, very weird question. So I'm kind of like, oh, that left me wanting like a closure to that conversation. Like, oh, I think Devin's smart enough to pick up on that. This is weird. I think she's kind of getting it, but where does it go after this?
Yeah, Devin's no dummy, that's for sure. Yeah, we don't get to see the end of it. We don't get to see where it goes from there. And I kind of wish we did.
Yeah.
But sidebar, this was another thought I had during that scene. Where's Rickon?
Yeah, I don't know.
Rickon's not working a day job, is he?
Right. Is he?
To my understanding, he's just an author. So wouldn't he just be lounging at home? Like, where is he? I just thought that was weird that he was nowhere to be found.
Maybe he's on his book tour.
But his book hasn't come out, remember? It's pre-release.
Oh, right. That was a pre-release. That's true. I don't know. Maybe he's just giving her space during the lactation. Maybe she was like, you stress me out. You need to leave during this consult.
I could see that. You're right.
Like, go take a walk while she's here. Okay. Thanks, hun.
Well, we head back to Lumen. Irving.
Oh, Irv.
Irving is fiending for some bird. He's like, I gotta get back over there. I gotta get over to O&D. Now, to be fair, he is also concerned because of everything that went down and them getting caught by Mr.
Yeah.
Milchick. So to some degree, he's worried, like, what if Bert got in trouble because of us? And what if he went to the break
Mhm.
room and blah, blah, blah. Dylan gets real snappy, like, gee, I wonder why nobody told you that might have been a terrible idea to go over there in the first place. So, like, everyone's edgy.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they have been locked away in timeout. But also, like, everyone seems to have a personal thing going on that's just making them extra edgy.
And everyone's edgy, but everyone is also acutely aware that Dylan is not himself. Like he's the most
Mhm.
different right now, too. Like, because even when Mark first comes in, he's asking everyone, he's trying to, play it cool in front of Milchick, and he's asking everyone how they're doing, and
Mhm.
Irving makes some small talk, and then Dylan's just like, I'm fine. And he's like, what? No sarcastic quippy retort here? Like,
Yeah.
no curse words? No what? What are you doing?
Mhm.
And he just staring straight ahead, doing his work, and he looks pissed.
Yeah, because of everybody, even when stuff is getting crazy, Dylan still keeps it fairly light
Yeah,
and sardonic, and he's just silent.
yeah,
When he does say something, it's extra
yeah,
agitated, and then for the most part, he's not saying anything. So,
yeah. So I think everyone's on edge because they're trying to figure out these doors, and they're like, "This is weird," but then it's an extra layer. Dylan isn't even asking questions. Like normally, I feel like Dylan would have been like, "What the f- are these doors?"
right in the midst of all that discussion, here comes Mr. Milchick. He's swaying, got a medium turtleneck on.
Yes, medium.
And he's wheeling in what looks to be a record player and some other things. He's got a cart. And as soon as he comes in, Mark's like, wait, are we getting an MDE? And Helly's like, what's an
What's an
MDE?
empty?
And he just starts saying, you guys, Helly has made it to 75% completion on her Sienna file and has earned herself a music dance experience. And quickly, Irving is like, she's only at 73. Like,
Like, wait a minute, she didn't get it yet.
and Milchick's like, well, we've all had a hard day. And then somebody was like, wait, why is your day hard? Like,
Yeah, Helly was like, wait, why has it been hard for you? And
and
he
he's just
just
like,
like,
anyway.
moving on.
So he's like, you get to pick one accessory, you get to choose one genre of song, and you'll get 5 minutes of MDE time.
Yes.
So I wanted to real quick just look at the list of options. I got the
Yes.
screenshot
I do that too.
and I was like, I just want to see what were the other options that she could have chose from.
There's a nice selection. There's a long list.
There is a long list. We have from top to bottom body funk, bouncy swing, buoyant reggae, defiant jazz, effusive ska, exalted choral, exciting rap. I want to know what that was. What was exciting rap? It has to be Will Smith, right? Like it has to be like getting hootin' tootin' country, lofty orchestral, maximized rhythmus. What is that? Playful funk, reckless disco, spooky ambient, tearful emo, thoughtful grunge, wholesome big band, okay, anyway,
The what?
and wistful pipes.
That's so funny. I love it so much. I would like hear what effusive ska sounds like. Maybe the spooky ambient. Who would choose that? How do you dance to spooky ambient music?
That's the thing, is that this is the music dance experience. This is like just music
Right.
time or sit down chill time. It's music dance. So I'm like, some of these I'm really trying to figure out what would what would the dancing be? Like from lofty orchestral, would it be like Beethoven? Would we be doing like old-timey partner dances or
Waltzing to it? Yeah, maybe. But and the maximized rhythms, it's like that could be anything. What is what rhythm? What is the rhythm? That could be anything.
could be anything.
Just like loud,
Just know it's
maximized rhythm.
maximized. Hmm.
To the max.
And exalted choral, I'm like, again, how are we dancing to?
Exalted makes me think it's gospel.
Well, okay, it could be. I could be.
Exalted choral, I think it's gospel music.
Here's my other thought, though. They're so weird about words and lyrics and things.
Yeah.
So are these all instrumental tracks?
Yeah, because they're not, I'm imagine just like they can't read things not written by Kier, they probably can't listen to any music with lyrics. Yeah.
I mean, we do get the moment with Bert later, and we'll get to it, but he does choose a song that does have lyrics.
Oh
But
yeah.
then I'm like, are they pre approved? Like, I would imagine if there are lyric options, they have to be like somewhat pre approved.
Yeah. Or they just know that's the only time. That's
Mhm.
probably the only time.
True. Like when you're on the way out the door.
Yeah.
Again, going back to this list, it's like if this is all instrumental, oh, that's got to be strange. Especially like tearful emo. What would that be without the lyrics? What would
What?
that be?
I mean, I think Helly probably made the best choice on there.
I think you're right.
Like maybe Body Funk is probably something similar to Defiant Jazz, just a funky groove you could dance to. But other than that, I don't really know.
Oh, you know what oh, wait, sorry, playful punk. I think I might have said playful funk when I listed it earlier, but it's playful punk
Oh yeah, because there's Body Funk
and
and
playful punk.
Playful Punk.
Yes.
Punk is not something I would describe as playful.
No, and especially after last episode where we got a taste of punk in the alley,
Right.
not playful at all. Kind of scary. Yeah. Well, as we said, I think Helly made the right choice. She chooses Defiant Jazz. And you guys, this scene
Oh, good.
is everything. I will never forget when watching this through the first time. They released a trailer
Uh-huh.
where you saw this scene, but it's out of context. And for everything that you know at the point you're watching early on in the show, you're like, how do we get here?
Right.
Like,
They're
all this crazy severed stuff is happening. When do we get to lights and dancing and, happy times? Because that doesn't quite line up.
right.
But let me tell you something. This scene works on so many levels, in so many ways. It just works.
Uh,
In a slight sidebar, I read an interview with Dan Erickson, the creator, and he actually admitted that in the process of creating this and when they got to this episode and they were writing it, he was like, I'm not feeling the MDE Defiant Jazz thing. Like he did
oh,
not see the vision. He did not see it.
thank goodness for Ben Stiller.
And they were just like, let's just try it out. And then it was like, as soon as Tremel Tillman came in as Milchick, they were like, oh, never mind. I get it now.
Yes.
He understood the assignment. I'm with it. So I would be so curious to hear him talk about like getting the script, seeing that scene, how he made his choices about what to do. Maybe he just listened. I don't know if they had the music at that point or not.
Right.
But there's just all these things. Like number one, he comes in with this medium fitted turtleneck, all white, just ivory, looking like he just stepped out of a 70s disco. And it's not his norm. Normally he's wearing his short short sleeve button up, looking like he's about to muscle some people up. And he's coming in looking like smooth operator. He is ready for MDE. I feel like he's more excited about it than anybody
right.
else.
I mean, that's why he skipped that 2%. He was like, I need this.
Forget you guys. I need this.
This is for me just as much as it is for you guys.
You're right. So she picks her accessory, which is the maracas, and Milchick puts the record on, and he gets to going.
He clicked remote to turn on the disco lights.
Oh yeah, the lights. So we've got, which we didn't even know that those lights could do colors. It was just like, oh snap,
right?
Like it's been like semi-green in here most of the time. Now we're getting like purples and oranges and yellows and reds and fuchsias, and it's just disco time. So Callie, I know that you were especially keen on us having our own MDE, and why not? The song that they use for the music dance experience is not like soundtrack music. It's actually a song by an artist named Joe McPhee, and it's called Shaky Jake. If you want to check it out, he's a jazz saxophonist, Black artist who's been playing since I'm sure the 70s or so. And lucky him, got his song into one of the dopest series of 2020, 2021, whenever this came out. So, yeah, for those who are listening, we may just cut this part out, but for those who are watching, we are going to do our best Milchick MDE experience.
That's the best dance moves, guys.
Then you guys can decide who's got it.
Hi guys, this is editor Rodnesha coming at you. So yeah, we did cut this segment because what is the point of having you guys sit and listen to a bunch of music and not be able to see it because this is an audio medium, not a visual one, yada yada yada.
This is Audi Callie. If you would like to see our innies do their very best Mr. Milchick impressions, head on over to our Patreon and join the Severed Floor tier and dance along.
That'll be all for our MDE today. We unfortunately don't have 5 minutes to just
Yeah,
jam
and
out
because it is a jazz
on
song,
here.
the actual song is very long, but
it is 13 minutes, you guys.
Yeah.
13 minutes and 36 seconds. It is long, but it is fun.
Yeah.
So going back to this moment in the scene, again, Tremel Tillman just makes this moment. I don't know how much was choreographed and how much was him, but the way that he kind of goes from person to person and like personalizes a dance with each of them.
Yeah.
You almost forget that he's a terrible person. And you're just like,
right.
Fun guy to be around. Like, you want to go get drinks with him. He's just a fun guy. It's a fun time. So like even Helly, like everyone has had these terrible run-ins with him, but in that moment, you're almost like, okay, Milchick, okay.
Yeah, I love when he starts off with Helly, right? Because it's her MDE, and she's kind of just shaking the maraca, and then he comes over to her, and she's like, "Oh, okay,
okay, all right. Well, I guess I'm into it now." And like everyone very quickly, because at first everyone is a little like stilted. You know, like she picks it up and just starts shaking it apprehensively. Mark's just kind of like standing there bobbing his head. Irving does a quick snap. Little. And Dylan is still sitting at his desk. So that is one thing to note, that everybody's up on their feet except Dylan in this moment. And he goes from person to person. He's doing his little like snaky kind of Egyptian walk and goes over to Mark, has a little dance moment with Mark. Even Mark gets all cheery and does a little jig for his dance moment.
Like a march in a circle. It's so funny.
You know? And then he goes over to Irving, does a little snap moment with Irving, shoulder to shoulder. And Irving's just like, oh, okay. All right. Like everyone for a moment forgets where they are and who they're with and what's going on. And they're just like,
yeah, while he's dancing with Irving, Mark and Helly have their little like eye across the room.
Yeah, they sure do.
There's a little flirty dance across the room.
Little maracas at you
over here.
So yeah, everybody's caught up in this music dance experience. I guess I can't fault this. It seems to be effective for what it does. But the one person who is not flinching, not moving, not bobbing at all is Dylan. We realize that he's kind of in his mind having these flashbacks back to his OTC and seeing his kid and just being so, you know, discombobulated. And then here comes Milchick, not taking the hint. This could have all been mitigated if he just left him alone. Like all he had to do was leave him alone. But then he comes over to him and he's like, oh, I'm gonna get Dylan up out of his chair. I'm gonna get him. And he's like bobbing to the side and
his reflection in Dylan's computer screen, and Dylan's face is just like raging. He's just like, it's like boiling. And here's Milchick doing octopus arms behind him.
Right? And then finally the music builds up, and the way the saxophone crescendos as Dylan mentally crescendoing, and then it's just like break.
Not only that, but the music gets more cacophonous. It gets to more of that like chaotic jazz too. It stops having a rhythm, and it's just like noise.
Yep.
So good.
So he just breaks and jumps up out of his chair, lunges at Milchick, pummels him to the ground, and it's just like, what's his name? Like just loses it. Now, what I find interesting is that nobody immediately went to resolve this situation. Like,
they're just like,
there's a good few seconds before they actually come and pull Dylan off of him. And it isn't until after he bites the mess out of him. Because Milchick's on the ground. He's like, get him off of me. And nobody
He's biting
moves.
me.
That's when people finally come over.
And like he didn't just like take a bite, he like bit down and was like holding on,
And like
spit.
lingered. Like he was trying to take flesh.
Yeah.
So the rest of the team finally comes, picks him up, and they all get very protective around him. Like when Milchick jumps up, they do not leave his side. They're like huddled around him. They're holding him, not in any way like, what did you do? Why would you do that? They're like ready to defend him. And Milchick, Milchick says, he broke the skin.
And Irving's like, he's gonna need a full tetanus toxoid panel.
You guys, how can these moments be so funny and so traumatizing at the same time? Like, I'm laughing, but I'm also just like, oh my gosh, like terrified. What is about to
Right.
happen? So he gets up in Dylan's face and he's like, oh, you've done it now, boy. I'm going to report you to Miss Cobell. And he says, you want me to come with you?
Yeah.
Let's tell her together.
Right. He's like, try me. You already told me you weren't supposed to do what you did. So
it's like the one time he gets a one up on Milchick. And like, you can tell that Milchick hates that he has an upper hand. He is seething under the surface. Like, if I could punch you right now. Ooh. So what's his solution? He goes, gets his cart and says, the music dance experience is officially canceled. And sachets away.
They got a good like 2.5 minutes in before this happened. So
they're good. They did. They got their time. But the music dance experience is officially canceled is a line for the ages. One that will not make sense unless you've seen the show.
Right.
That is the party shutdown of all party shutdowns. So Milchick rolls out, literally rolls out, and they all rally around Dylan. Then they're like, what were you thinking? What were you doing?
Yeah.
And he tells them in that point, they can turn us on. They can wake us up outside in our homes. And everybody's mind is just like,
blown. Yeah, he's just like, they did this to me last night. I have a son.
This moment just I could watch this scene over and over because for these people who've been trapped in this building, no other anything, and then they get to realize like, wait, we could experience life outside. Like there is a way.
Yeah.
There's a possibility. And of course, Helly's wheels immediately start turning.
Yeah.
Like we can use this to our advantage. We could get access to, you know, security, commandeer, whatever it is, and we can use it to like get to our outside lives.
Right.
Everybody else is like, that's a dumb idea. What about security? What about this and that? Helly, to her credit, and it's got to have something to do with her outside, not just her outside personality, but maybe what she knows. I don't know. But like, she's unflinchingly skeptical and has had this belief from the time she's come in that these people are full of crap.
Yeah.
I feel like they're just telling us stuff and feeding us stuff. Like she refuses to accept everything as gospel. Even after all this time, she's just like, oh no. Yeah. Like I cannot believe that this is 100% everything they say it is. Like I question it.
And I think to some extent it's still her newness too, right? Like she's been to the break room one time.
That's true.
And they did allude to like they're having issues with that type of personality in the past. So maybe she's not the first one, but also it's kind of like the stars have aligned with this particular group to give them more information than any group before them has ever had, or any combination of MDR has ever had before, right? Because PD was doing all of this on his own when he was there.
Very good point.
But they've kind of, you know, she was only questioning by herself for a short period of time before Mark got on board, and now it's definitely more people on board.
It's a good point. Yeah, she has had the perfect storm of things happen in her introductory period. So yeah, I guess there is a reason for her to hold on a little bit more. And not to say that everyone else hasn't had a natural skepticism, but like she seems just very determined to get at, like to find the way, whatever the way is.
Yeah. Right.
But at the same time, now I'm thinking about what you're saying. Like, this is a renewed sense because she did kind of deflate during Baby Goats, right? I think that was the thing that kind of brought her back around.
Right. Yeah.
Because otherwise, before that, Mark was like trying to get her to do the mapping, and she's like, I'm not for it. I'm not with it. So, anywho.
So, they've moved the conversation to like the storage area of the kitchenette, and Dylan's telling them about his OTC experience, and he's like, and then he hugged me, and then it ended, and it was so fast, I've just been trying to remember as much as possible. And he's just like, he won't even tell me my son's name. And Irving's like, he's not your son, he's your outie son. And it's just like, that's bullshit. He's my son too. Like, we are one person. And Helly kind of looks disgusted at Irving for even suggesting that it's not his son. And then, she's trying to come up with a plan. Like, we can use this to our advantage, like you said, and give us all a chance to see what our outside lives are like. And they're all like, well, how can we do that? How can we get to security? We can't even get out of MDR right now. And then Mark reveals that during the music dance experience, he felt Grainer's security card in his pocket.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And what's interesting is when he pulled it out, they all immediately recognized it as Grainer's card. And Helly's like, why does your outie have
Grainer's key card? Yeah.
Our head of security's key card? Because he's like, I mean, I must have had it when I came in. So that was really interesting to me, that they weren't like, what is this? It's a Lumen key card, but we don't know what it's for. They were like, no, they all knew it was Grainer's card specifically.
I wonder, I haven't seen Cobell's card, so I don't know what hers looks like. I don't think that, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think that Milchick's card is black.
Yeah, I don't think his is the same. Yeah.
I don't think his is black.
So
So I'm like, does Graner have the only black card? And maybe that's why they all know it's his? I don't know. I did wonder that, because everyone did instantly recognize it as his card.
Right. And they say he's the head of security. Milchick's job is not security, but we don't ever see anybody else from security.
Nope, sure don't. And that's part of what gets discussed when Helly's like, let's go down to security and figure out what's going on. Dylan immediately is like, yeah, sure, let's go into the office where all the security people are. And she's like, all the security? I've only seen one.
Right.
So, she's like, once again, I'm not buying the BS. I bet nobody else is in there, and I'm willing to risk it to find out. And then we find out that not only does Mark have Grainer's key card, but he also knows where the security office is. And he says that Petey showed him during a fire drill once. So I had a question, because I think I saw this again, was a theory thing that I came across, but going back to like how Petey not only figured out where everything is, but was able to like sneak out tapes and all this other stuff. Do they have fire drills often? Number one. Or did Petey perhaps trigger a fire drill, like set off a fire alarm as a way to distract and like show Mark where security is?
Have you noticed any fire pools? Because I haven't.
I haven't either.
They would stand out because everything's all white.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. It just makes me think like Petey was napping for an extremely long time. He had to be, and maybe as the head of the department, he could find excuses here and there to be out and just be wandering around. But he had to be more stealthy about it than this group has been, because they seem to know when these people are wandering around.
Here's my other question. What does a fire drill entail for severed workers? If they are not supposed to know who they are on the outside, how do you evacuate a whole floor without sending a bunch of people up and down the elevator at the same time, or the stairs?
Right. Do they have multiple routes in their exit plan, their emergency plan, like everyone go to their respective doors? That would be a lot. I mean, we know Lumen is massive and the severed floor seems to have a lot more departments than we know of, but like that seems unrealistic for sure.
Yeah, that's again my question, because I'm like, even if everyone had their own exit, one, that would be several doors to manage, and two, if you're in a true emergency and my door is all the way down the hall where the fire could be, or just furthest away, why would I do that?
I'm going to your door
versus the door that's right here. That's silly. Yeah.
Right. You're supposed to go to the nearest exit.
I'm very curious how a fire drill works when you're severed.
Yeah, I didn't even really hang any time on that. That's so interesting though. Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, I just thought about that when it got mentioned. I was like, well, wait a minute. How is a fire drill happening? I don't know. So
they decide to go check out the security office, right? Dylan stays behind. I think presumably because they're probably expecting Milchick to come back for him for a punishment at some point. And then as soon as they start walking, Irv's like, I'm sorry, guys, I have to
Oh
go.
my
And he
gosh.
he he goes to O&D and they're like, Herb, what are you doing? And he's like, I
I
can't
can't
hear
hear you.
you.
I'm so
I can't hear
sorry.
you. He's just like, I have to go find my love. Y'all don't
I
understand. This is
I
love.
just laughed
Go.
at how quickly the switch happened too, because he really made it seem like he was all in on this mission, put on his jacket,
Right.
and as soon as they get outside those doors, he's just like, well, bye y'all.
Yeah, no,
Going to
he was just
O&D.
like, oh, Mark has a card to get us out of here. I just need to go with them so he can get me out. That's all.
I died. And he truly pulled the la 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 not listening. Like
I can't hear you. I laughed so hard. I was like, I can't hear you. And then
we
we
made
need
a
a
manager.
manager from the other end. Herb is a hoot. I
Herb is
cannot
a hoot.
handle it.
You're right. Again, for such a stressful episode, there are a lot of moments of levity.
No, yeah, there are. It's great. But revisiting a conversation that we had previously before
Okay.
we move on to the next scene. So now we know for sure what I was alluding to. Didn't want to, I hope I didn't give it away for anybody, but it's hard, y'all. We're doing a rewatch. So if this is your first time and
Sorry.
we've given some stuff away, we are so sorry. I think we've done a pretty good job. But this one, when Helly went to the break room, right? She said she heard this man's voice, and Dylan said
Yeah.
he heard a crying baby, right? So is Dylan hearing his son crying for him when he goes to
Right?
the break room? Is it like they choose something personally tormenting to the person there to trigger some extra psychological like chaos? And I wonder, it made me wonder, like, well, if he goes to the break room at any point now, will they have to change what they're playing for him? Like, will he recognize that now? It's not just some
Oh.
random time, or will he recognize, like, oh shit, that's my son? Like, are they torturing my son? Like, what is this from? Like, I don't know, but it's so
Now,
interesting.
here's a question. Do they play something, or is it just what their mind subconsciously drifts to?
Oh, I don't know.
Because if that's the case, they definitely can't control it. But I'm like, how else would they have like audio or access to those kind of things for each person, unless they're like following them throughout their lives? Here's another question I have. So we've seen the Audi lives, well, of almost everyone. We haven't gotten to Irving yet, but
We haven't seen anything about Helly
oh,
either.
you're right. Okay, I lie. We haven't got, okay. Let me
Haven't got
roll
that
back that
far.
statement. Roll back. So we're starting to get more unfurling of the Audi lives in relation to the break room and even just severance. The one thing we're starting to pick up on, you know, with Petey's situation, with Mark's situation, it seems like people who are getting severed are using it as a way to cope with something. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the case for everyone, but it makes me wonder for Dylan, like now that we know he has a kid and, you know, is a caretaker for this child, what is his motivation to want to be severed when you have children? And I watched this video, I think it was Nautilus Files on YouTube, and they did specific coverage over Dylan. But they made a good point of like, as a parent, how would you justify not having any awareness of your kids for 8 hours a day? Anything could happen. Like, what if they have an emergency at school? What if they get sick? What if whatever? Like, how can you just shut off your brain when you have children? So it makes me wonder what Dylan's reason for being severed is.
Yeah, and that's why I had the same question about Petey as well. His daughter is older, but I was like, well, shoot, was he already out of their lives? Like, did the divorce already happen before he got severed? Or did he get severed and it caused the divorce because of that? Like, you know, I can imagine a wife being like, so what if something happens to us in the day? You're just not going to know until you get off. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? You know?
You did make that point. And that, I mean, it is a good point for those who are parents and are severed.
Yeah.
Now, I guess the question is he a single parent?
Right.
Because it's even harder to fathom if you're a single parent and you don't have anyone else to take care of your kids. So it's like, I could maybe see it if it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go to work, turn off my brain for 8 hours, as long as one of us is still able to attend to our child if something comes up. But if you're a single parent, how?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not confirmed, even though we did talk about in the last episode that there possibly were women's clothes in Dylan's closet.
Yeah.
But it isn't confirmed that he has a wife or a partner that could co-parent with him. So we really don't know. We've only
Right.
seen him and his son, especially since his son is so young. I'm just like, what is Dylan's motivation for this? I'm very
Yeah.
curious, unless it is just purely financial. Because I mean, as we mentioned, they are getting crazy pay to do this work. But another
Right.
theory I had, tying in the break room factor, is his son sick or special needs or something where they may need the money to take care of him. And
Yeah.
that's why he's willing to do the severance. Because especially hearing the cries of a baby, I don't know if something happened to his son when he was young.
Right.
I don't know. It's one of those things that it makes me wonder, like, why is that the specific thing that he hears? And again, we don't know if what they hear in the break room is trauma related or not. We're presuming.
Yeah.
But if it is trauma related, I'm like, did something happen to his son? And maybe, it ended up causing a financial strain on the family or a financial burden. And so he takes this job, gets severed to help with the family, but like kind of lives with the trauma of whatever this is causing his son to cry uncontrollably. I don't know. That's just my theory, but I'm
Right.
wondering if there's something to that. Could not be, could just be the traumatization of having kids. But I think in that video too that I mentioned, there was also a theory that maybe he has a lot of children. I
Mhm.
think there was a theory that he may have more than just that one son. And the reason he chose severance is because that's the only way he can get a break from his many, many kids, which I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know me too. You like to get into all the online theories, and I tend to stay away from them because if a suggested theory ends up being right, it still feels like a spoiler to me. You know what I mean? Like that they didn't know they were right, but they guessed it and I read it and then it happened and now I'm mad. So I don't know what it was about the house and the closet, but I just got the feeling that he wasn't the only kid
Okay.
either. He was just the only kid
That
there
is interesting.
at the time. I'm not sure why. I just had a feeling that he was like Papa Bear
Yeah.
had a bunch of kids.
I think the point that they made about that is that I think they were kind of tying in some of Dylan's persona as an innie
Mm,
versus the reality, like how there tends to be kind of a contrast between the innie selves and outie selves, and
yes.
how any Dylan thinks he's single, thinks he's like banging ladies left and right, sees himself like traveling the
Yeah.
world and bodybuilding and
Right.
all these things that are like child free, carefree existences.
Yeah.
And they were like, wouldn't it be interesting if the reality were he's married, has a lot of kids, gets no downtime, is actually stressed and looking for an escape, and chooses a job where he's severed so that he gets a break for a few hours a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't even think about it when I looked at the house, whether or not I got a vibe of there being multiple children or not. I think the first time through, for sure, I was just too shocked about the fact that there was a child, period. I was just like, what? What?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I think something about, and now I'm just going to stereotype like single dads and single one-to-one
Mm-hmm.
things. I feel like a house that looks like really lived in, really homey is probably for a bigger
Mm.
family rather than like single dad and his one
Kid
son.
comes on the weekend.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
like he shares custody. It's still going to look more like a bachelor's pad.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It definitely did have a fuller, busier
Yeah.
aesthetic than say we've gotten at Mark's
Exactly.
house or like somewhere else. Even just that little glimpse we got of the kid in the TV room,
Hmm.
it did feel like more things were happening in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Helly and Mark make it inside of the security office, and Helly's hunch was correct. There's nobody there. It's completely empty. And
Empty.
empty. And Mark is looking at all like the surveillance cameras as Helly is looking for anything that has to do with like OTC, and she sees on the wall switches or lights for every person on the severed floor, and you see MDR and all four of their names. You see some of the O&D names, and then you see that there's
Mm-hmm.
multiple other sets of names. So it's like, holy shit, there's a lot of people on the severed floor. And then she finds the security protocol binder. And as she's finding the binder and she's flipping through trying to find the instructions for the overtime contingency, Mark's like, oh shoot, it's Cobell going down the elevator. Not only that, but there's a light switch that is tracking her and it says like Cobell, and you can see it going down, and she's going down the elevator, and then he looks at the camera, and he's seeing the surveillance of her in the elevator. So I'm like, oh, how does that work if she's not severed? Like, that makes sense to me for everyone who has a chip in their head, but like,
oh man, I don't know if I should bring this up now or not. I might wait because I want to confirm
something.
There's a theory out there, and I want to confirm it before I bring it up. So I won't bring it up now, but I wonder about that as well. I did take a screenshot of that screen from when we see Cobell going up and down, and I just thought it was interesting. I'm paying attention so much to all these like computer screens and things, because I'm just like, what's going on? Like, but first off, you see that the screen is split in half. They have a non-severed ascending, descending, and they have a severed ascending, descending, or inactive. I guess it shows you when you're not doing anything. And then you can see each of the floors. There's a 13th floor, but it is not labeled. There on the 12th floor, it says machine. What that means. And then on the 11th floor, it says executive suite. And that's where it looks like Cobell is descending down from. So is executive suite like the main floor? It can't be the main floor, right? Because it's the 11th floor. So was she there early and up taking a meeting and did that? So underneath her, it says departing executive suite, destination severed. And then it says capacity 1%. And then it says energy 5.1 out of 10. So I'm like, that's a lot of dang information. I don't know what capacity means. Is like mental capacity? Is that capacity in the elevator? Like, but it's a lot of information just from the elevators. So yeah, and then the 10th floor, it says senior suite, 9th floor, conference room, 8th floor, conference room, 7th floor, IT, 6th floor, it says either AOQ or ACQ. It's kind of blurry. And then 5th floor is data P, which I'm guessing is data processing. And then that's all the screen shows from that shot. So we don't know what's on the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st is, I guess, lobby. But I'm looking at all this stuff like, what does it all mean? What does it all mean? And there's some stuff off to the side, but I don't know what it means. There's like an error category, a car category, a function category. It says under system logs. So don't know what it means.
Very interesting.
I meant to get screenshots of the other things that they see on the walls. I did write it down. I didn't get to go back and screenshot it, so I won't have it for this conversation, but maybe we'll have it in the show notes if that's a possibility. But some of the other categories that they showed MDR. They had another group or whatever that was labeled CL, WN, and CE. So I was like, what do those mean? I'm over here like, CL, covered labor, closet lavatory. Like, what does it mean? But those were some of the other groups that we saw besides OD and MDR. So I'm very curious what those severed groups are and what they do. Maybe we'll get that at some point. It again, it is interesting about Cobell, and we'll come back to that maybe in an episode or two once I get some information together. But I'm curious about that as well. And I am curious, like, for anyone else who isn't severed or who's classified as non-severed, like, how are they? Is it facial scanning? Are they maybe doing facial recognition?
Maybe their key card.
Oh, maybe you're right, because they do have to use that to get in the elevator, right?
So maybe it's just the card, because the fact that Ragabi let Mark know that Mr. Graner's card is not tracked makes me think, well, everyone else's must be tracked. So there must be a in and out log anytime you use your card too.
See, but that is actually something I wrote down too, because they said that Graner's card is untraceable. And I'm like, but if you're doing system logs, don't you get a login code every time someone's card is used? So if they know Graner's missing, well, I guess at this point, Cobell isn't there. But for Milchick, who is there and does know that Graner hasn't showed up, wouldn't you be checking the logs to see if that card has been...
But it's not traceable then.
But is his the only one that's not traceable?
The only one that doesn't show up on the log.
But why?
Because he's the head of security and you got to be
But
sneaky.
wouldn't you want to know for cases like these where maybe your card has been pilfered?
I mean, not if they didn't anticipate this would happen. They didn't anticipate.
They sure didn't. They aren't very smart.
Well,
got to do better. And the other thing too is if there isn't a tracker or something with each person, then are they doing bioscanning?
Yeah.
Because again, the little thing that shows up for Cobell talks about her energy level. I still don't know what capacity means, because in the elevator logs, it says weight capacity at 7%. So that actually has to do with the elevator capacity. So I don't know what capacity for Cobell means.
Very strange.
And how are you measuring her energy? I'm like, are there bioscanners in the elevators? Are there body scanners? When you walk through the doors, like, I have questions. So many questions.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no answers.
I know.
So Mark sees her coming down and is freaking out, and Helly's like, don't worry, she's not going to come here. And he was like, okay, yeah, I'm so glad that you are so assured that she's not going to come in here. We need to go. And so she rips out the OTC instruction page to take with them, and they head back to MDR. And then Cobell makes her way to her office, and she's stopped in the hallway by Natalie, who has got the board on just like she always does, and says, Doug Graner is dead. Did you know anything about it? The board is wondering if you spoke to the cops. And, Harmony's like, what the heck? Because she didn't know. But she's like, you know what? Whoever killed Mr. Graner is probably whoever helped Petey reintegrate. And so, of course, the board through Natalie are like, we've told you this before, like reintegration is not
the board
possible.
would like to remind you that reintegration is not possible. And she gets up in Natalie's face. She said,
oh, yeah, she's all in it. She's like, I'm not talking to Natalie no more. I'm talking directly to the board. So she puts her mouth right up on that earpiece and is like, I have proof. I have proof that Petey was integrated, and I'd be happy to go through it with you in person. And then Natalie's like bewildered as she's listening to the board's response. And they're like, the board can accommodate this at the Egan Family Gala next week.
Details to come.
All I could think was like, oh my God, the lack of personal space. Oh my gosh, this is so awkward.
It's interesting how in that moment, when she gets up on Natalie into the earpiece, you almost can't tell that she's like so much shorter than her. Like, she seems to tower. And then when she takes a step back, you see like, oh, she's a tiny woman. Like, but in that moment, yeah, it's like you see that her energy is matching, like, oh, no. I put my big girl pants on today. And guess what? We ain't having it. Okay. No more intermediaries. No more, the board did this and the board that. I will talk to you directly. If you want to know more, you know where to find me. And Natalie looks like, oh, they agreed, and I guess you have no use for me. And I guess we'll see about this gala, what's going to happen there, if she's going to get a chance to talk to the board. This is going to be very interesting, very exciting to see. But finally, Cobell gets some headway, it looks like, with getting some FaceTime with the board. See where that goes. At this point, we get back to Irving, who shows up at O&D. He's like looking chipper, but then he rounds the corner and you're hearing some Hawaiian music. I didn't hear that on the list, by the by. That wasn't like, Honolulu Hawaiian or whatever. Like, but there's like Hawaiian themed music and luau themed stuff going on. The melon bar is in full effect. All right. We've got melon balls, we've got melon statues, we've got melon cuttings, we've got melon on a stick. Like, it's everywhere. And everyone's laughing and out of their little hidey hole and chit-chatting. And then you see a little flyer on the wall that says, goodbye bird or bye-bye bird or whatever. It's in the melons, little flags. And so Irving's realizing, wait, Bert's leaving. Yeah. And in this world, in this reality, people don't just leave. They effectively die.
Yep.
So Irving is like having a crisis in this moment because everyone's getting excited, wishing Bert well, laughing and celebrating. And all he can think is like, I'm about to lose the man I love. And not only will I never see him again, but he will effectively be dead to me. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
So before he says anything, right, Milchick comes out of nowhere, like he's been doing this whole dang episode, just popping up on folks. And it's like, all right, guys, gather around. We're going to wish Bert well and send him off. And we're going to watch his Innie's goodbye video. So he wheels in the VHS again. He's like, so, let's gather all the O&D. Oh, and one refiner. And he catches Irving in the doorway. And he's just like, damn it. Like, how did you get out? Like, so, he's clearly trying to save face. Like, I'm gonna have to look at that door later. Anyway, like, so he lets everybody know that Bert is retiring, that his Audi made a video and they're gonna watch it. And the first thing I noticed when they turn this video on is that even his Audi looks caught off guard. This doesn't look like my Audi came to Lumen and said, hey, I'm ready to retire. I want this to be my last day, blah, blah, blah. It looks like they told him, hey, you've done your time. You've served us well. And, we're ready to offer you your retirement package today.
Yeah. Because he's like, oh, okay, start now.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
He like looks up in the corner and then was like, all right, here we go. And he, again, is so caught off guard that this speech is all over the place because he's like, I don't know what to say. And I don't know these people and I don't know what's going on. And all right.
It is the most depressing thing because he kind of starts out nicely, but then he keeps like contradicting himself and making it bad, right? So he's like, I don't know you guys, but I know a part of me knows you guys and must have, must enjoy working with you because I come home feeling
it would have been perfect.
If he had stopped there, it would have been like, oh, that's, but then he's like, though I don't really know,
and there's no way for me to know. And
right, I know I'll always remember you, but just in a deep, dark, inaccessible portion of my mind, so I won't actually remember you. And he just keeps kind of being like trying to say nice things, but like he also is kind of like, why are we even doing this? Because and I know that I'm not going to remember.
And if nothing else, why not give him a prepared speech like y'all do when they start and have their videos to their Innies at the beginning? Have a little prepared speech that's like, hello, everyone. My name is Bert G, and today is my last day working at Lumen. I'm very grateful for the time that I've had, blah, 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 blah. I wish you all well, goodbye. Like simple.
Yeah. I almost wish, he had just been like, I hope things went well. I was there for 7 years. Bye. Like what else? What else is
and like you said, if he had stopped at that part where he was like, I come home fulfilled, because that was very nice. I was like, oh, well, that's a nice sentiment to leave with. And then it's like they kept being like, keep going. And he's just like, oh, well, I suppose I know you, but I don't know you. And I will hold on to the memories, but I won't hold on to the memories because I don't know where they are. Like, it just gets so bad. It is depressing.
It's
and all
so
I can think too is if I were there as an Innie watching this video, I'd be like, this does not inspire me or cheer me in any way.
Well, and his colleagues are reacting to it that same way too, where they're all smiling and they're like, oh, this is nice. And then as he keeps rambling on, they're all coming to the realization at the same time too, like, oh yeah, Bert's not gonna remember us. Like they all seem very fond of their department head and they're sad in a different way than Irv is sad, but it's all for the same reason. Like he's gonna be gone forever and he's not gonna remember us.
I mean, we know why, but why not let any Bert make the exit speech? So that he can be like talking from an actual experiential person. But clearly they don't want anyone to have any real hope or genuine connection. Like it's more gaslighting. We're back to core principle number 1, gaslight. So it's like, we're going to play this video from the outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
So that you guys don't get all excited and ramped up. We don't want anybody catching any feelings. Let's keep this icy cold, And I'm like, man, this sucks. I would have rather just have my melon, not said anything, and just shook his hand and let him go. Like, I'd rather that.
Right.
Equally detached, but not as twisted. So this sets Irving off. They end the video and Irving is just like, what are you guys doing? He's basically dying and you guys are just cheering. This is the end of him. He will cease to be. And you guys are just clapping it up. And he goes off. And then when Milchick tries to check him, ooh,
I love it.
I never in my life thought I'd see him get so incensed. He has words for Milchick. And he basically reads him about the fact that he's like, you're not severed. You get to keep your memories intact.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with the trauma of having someone rip your memories away from you and rip your life away from you.
Yeah.
And he goes off. He does not let off the gas at all. And Milchick, you can see him being like, oh! Like, he looks
like, what has been to you?
And of all the people too, like Irving is the last person. Like we said, like Irving has been the Lumen apologist. He's been Kier's right-hand man, his day one, and now he's like, oh no, I have found something that means more to me and you're about to take it away.
Yeah.
Not having it. So Milchick's about to kick him back to MDR. And Bert's like, I guess maybe because it's his last day, but Bert's like, no, it's fine. He'll be okay. I'm sure he won't say anything else. Let him stay. And it's not like he even stayed for much longer. Like all they did after that was shake his hand and then that was it.
Yeah.
But just the look between the two of them, and Milchick is just like, I don't know what's gotten into you people today. The fact that he says you people, I was like, I'm done. But he's just like, all right, he can stay. And so then he gets back into smiley Milchick mode and it's like, all right, guys, we're going to play Bert's farewell song. This is the selection that his outie has chosen, which I'm really questioning if that's actually true or not. I don't know if he actually got to choose this song. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if there was just like a list that they gave his outie to be like, pick from this list which one sounds good to you, and he probably just said, yeah, sure, this one. I don't know, because again, he's so in his video like, I don't know you people, I don't know what attachments I have to you guys, or maybe this is the song every outie gets on their farewell. Maybe they all get.
It's twisted. Like if they are picking the song and not letting the outie pick it, like F them. Like what?
Right.
So the song is Times of Your Life by Paul Anka. Every time there's a song, I want to just sing it, but we won't sing it. But the lyrics are, good morning yesterday, you wake up and time has slipped away. And suddenly it's hard to find the memories you left behind. Remember, do you remember? Reach back for the joy and the sorrow, put them away in your mind. For memories are time that you borrow to spend when you get tomorrow. Here comes the saddest part. The seasons are passing one by one, so gather moments while you may. Collect the dreams you dream today. Remember, will you remember the times of your life? And it's just like kudos to the music supervisor. Because it seems like it was written for Severance.
Right?
Like it's just it's so sad because it's so perfect, and it's like, you're grasping for these memories, you're trying to keep the joy, but you can't.
The way they play this alongside Irving departing, it's just so sad. I don't know if this song was meant to be this sad, but they don't interject at all. You just get the handshake between him and Bert. And that's all they get. That's it. That's their last
moment. Yeah, they don't even get to hug. They don't get another private moment together because everyone's like lining up. It's like shaking hands after a children's soccer game. Like,
right? Good game. Good game. Yeah.
Giving each other high fives. And then he's walking slowly down the hallway. He's being led back to MDR by Milchick while the song is playing.
So he doesn't even get to be alone. He's being watched by this man.
Yeah.
And I think that if I'm not mistaken, like Milchick is behind him. So it's like, in case you get any ideas, keep it moving. So it's like he's just being watched and he's like spiraling. And then you have this song that's just drawn out through this moment, and they don't intercut it with anything. It's just him walking. And you see all the thoughts on John Turturro's face, of just like what's happening and what he's losing. And then this music, it's like each expression is being matched with, you would think they were actually playing that music while he's walking down the hall, because it's like each line kind of matches a moment he's having internally. And the fact that the lyrics start with "Do you remember?" to "Will you remember?" is where it ends. And it's like, no, he won't remember. No, he won't. No point in asking, do you? Will you? You won't.
No.
So
Yeah.
sad.
And if you haven't heard the song, you're not familiar with Paul Anka, listen to it. Take a listen. It's a song that has made me think of, I can't remember why this came up before, but I have had a conversation about this song before. And it makes me think of having a loved one with Alzheimer's or something. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot in there about memory loss, which is sad, or
Yeah.
trying to hold on to memories. Anyway, I need to move past this. It's heavy.
Yeah.
So while this was happening, Helly and Mark go back to MDR. So they're back at MDR while Irv is still at O&D. And they tell Dylan about the security office. And then they make their plan, and Dylan volunteers to be the one to stay back.
Right.
Trigger the OTC. He's like, I've already experienced it once. You guys should have a chance. And Helly's explaining, like, no, but I think it's a 2-man job because you have to flip switch on either side of the wall. And he's like, no, I can do it. And they're kind of going over like the instructions. And Helly's like, oh yeah, I think I got it.
I love when he says, like, I have the strength of 2 men. So
yeah,
no
yeah. He's like, I have the
like,
strength of 2 men.
Dummy. You have to be on either side of the door.
Yeah. And he's like, Helly's like, no, you engage the this, and then you do this and this and this and this and this, and it sounds complicated. And then Dylan takes the instructions from her and is like, trackball type, switch type, flip type, hold, boom. And Mark is looking at him like, what? And he's like, what? I'm smart. That's why I have 3 times as many finger traps as you guys. So then back to when Milchick and Irv get back to MDR. The rest of them are back in place. So luckily, there's no reason for Milchick to believe that they were all out, just that Irving figured out a way to get out, right? Because the 3 of them are back at their desks by this time. And Milchick doesn't even come in. He just like opens the door for him. He's like, too done with this group.
He doesn't say nothing. He just lets him in and closes the door behind him.
And Irving comes in and he looks around at his fellow MDR people and he's like, let's burn this place to the ground. He's like, okay, I'm finally on board because what the heck are they doing to us?
It's crazy too, the way when he comes in, everyone kind of rises up from their cubicle and looks at him like, oh no, what's wrong or what happened? And he doesn't say anything about Bert's retiring. He doesn't say like, I didn't get to say goodbye. He doesn't say anything other than I'm done. Burn it down. Like, shut it down.
And I just remember it being like, that's right, Bert. I mean, that's right, Irv, like yelling at the TV.
Same. And I love how they each, like, they cut to like, he looks at Mark. Mark looks at Helly. Helly's like, yes. She looks at Dylan. Dylan's like, hell yeah. He looks back at Mark. Mark's like, okay, we're doing this. Like, everybody's in, no questions asked. And I remember when I saw this the first time, and even this time through, I thought this was going to be the last scene. I was like, yes, we end on this moment of empowerment where it's like, all right, everyone's in. And then it's not the last scene. And so like, at this point, I'm just like, no, wait, no, this was like, this is the high. Oh no, it gets better. You think this is going to be it, but then it cuts to Outie Mark back at his house. And he's getting litty as a titty again, just drinking it up. I'm like, oh man, just the swings.
He's drunk.
Yeah, he is, 5 sheets to the wind. So we don't know what's going on. He's drinking bourbon or whiskey or something, like to the point that his hand is like shaking as he raises the glass to his mouth. And I'm just like, good grief. Like, is some of this
the drunkest we've seen so far?
Right. And I'm like, is some of this residual from the day that he has had? Has to be, right? So we don't really catch what's going on, but then his phone, he's looking at his phone and he's looking up stuff regarding Gans College. So clearly he's still shook by what happened with Ragabi. I'm sure he's probably checking to see if anybody has reported a dead body or something like that.
Yeah, he's definitely checking to see if there's any stories about Graner being found. Which makes me wonder, how do they know Grainer's dead? Because there aren't any
Right.
stories that pop up. How did Lumen find out? I just thought of that.
Question. I don't know. And the only thing I can think is if Ragabi ditched the body somewhere and the body just got found somewhere not near the college.
Oh, yeah, maybe that makes sense. Yeah. So there might have been another news story that he didn't like flag because he's looking specifically at Gans College. Yeah, maybe.
So as he's drinking and scrolling, we get a knock at the door and Alexa's back. Now, to be fair, she's only back because she left her phone during her night of passion, and I guess it fell between the bed and the wall or some nonsense. And she's just back to get her phone. Now, this time she seems very like, I'm not here for it, Mark. I just need my phone. Like, she's not trying to give him the time of day. Mark, on the other hand, is like, hey, we had fun, right? Maybe we have some more fun. And she's finally not here for it. She's just like, I don't think you're ready for this. And he's like, what? I'm so ready. I'm too ready.
That's just drunk Mark being like, yeah, I'm ready for the sex, not the relationship.
You mean ready? I'm good to go, baby. Yeah. So drunk Mark is not reading the room. And then in this moment of not thinking things through and being completely checked out, he's like, is it because I talked about her? Because I don't have to talk about her. I don't have to talk about Gemma ever again. And she's like, no, I think it's more than that. And I think you need to talk to someone, not me, about Gemma. And he's like, no, wait. No, watch this. Watch what I do. And he takes a photo of her that is like slightly out of focus. We just hold it up and he's all like, watch. And he takes it and rip. And then just is like, poof, she gone. And then you see him realize, oh crap, what have I done?
Yeah.
The moment quickly fades and she registers it and she's just like, you're a mess, and heads out the door.
Yeah.
And he tries to recover it like, no. Yeah, I can't believe you're leaving. Why would you leave? Like, he looks completely surprised that she's walking out the door. Now, to be fair, I get it because she has given him a lot of chances. So in his mind, he's probably like, I don't get it. I mean, I've done worse than this and you stuck around. So why are you leaving now? So he chases her outside. She doesn't stop. She doesn't listen. She gets in her car. She drives off. Sidebar. Why does everyone in this town have janky old cars? Like her car, Mark's car, Cobell's car, they all look like old POSs, and I don't understand why these cars look so bad.
I don't know, especially
for the money that they're getting from Lumen.
I know, Mark especially. Like, Selvig has got to keep up the facade, right? Like, she doesn't
appearances, yeah.
But Mark should have a nice car.
Nicer.
Yeah. Very interesting.
And I'm just like, man, why is everybody's car around here so awful? I don't get it. Anyway, she drives off and then he like starts to have a moment of clarity. And then it's just like, oh, Mark, you blew it on so many levels. Heads back in. Then as he heads in, we get another great music cue lineup. And this time it's Billie Holiday, I'll Be Seeing You. So that starts playing in the background, and you've got Mark, who's just like a mess. He bends over, picks up the pieces of the photo he just tore up, and then goes to sit at a table and gets out some tape and tries to put it back together.
Yeah.
I don't think I wrote down the lyrics on this one, but they didn't quite stand out to me as much as the Paul Anka song did, but it's still a great song.
Yeah.
And again, the way it lines up with the shots visually to see the storytelling that's happening between like Mark's interior and the music. And what I love, and this is a clue that even though they're about to reveal it anyway, this is a clue that I did not catch the first time around. And now it seems so obvious to me. And I was just like, oh, I can't believe. But in that moment, he has an interior monologue. And this is what it says. My wife was extraordinary. My wife was allergic to nutmeg. When she sneezed, she always sneezed twice. My wife liked other people's dogs. My wife thought cardigans looked ridiculous. I love all these things about her equally. Y'all,
it's like, what does that remind you of?
By the time he finishes that statement and moves his hand away, and they show that photo, and reveal of all reveals, Miss Casey is Gemma.
Yep. Yep.
If you guys are watching this for the first time, you probably feel the way I felt. When they showed that, I was just like, oh, how did I not see it? How did I not see it?
I did not see it.
How did I not
all
see
the
it?
things that we have, all the clues that have led up to this moment that are so clear to me now that I just didn't put together. The candle showing up in the wellness center, them deliberately making them cross paths, Milchick questioning if it was a good idea to send Mark to wellness. Like maybe up until this point, they've been trying to limit their interactions. All this questioning about if Mark thinks he sees his wife places. Like so much of this led up to like
many
Gemma is Miss
clues.
Kate, but no, I did not put it together at all.
And holding it in all these episodes we've been doing the podcast,
right?
It's like, oh, it's so hard not to talk about it. Oh. And so like, but I just remember the first time it being so surprising to me. And I was so glad to be surprised by it, because afterwards I went, scouring, as you said, like all the theory things. And there were people who had guessed it much earlier, which means they were probably doing the deep dive, pay attention that we're doing now. But I was just like, along for the ride. So I wasn't really paying as much attention. So it did not cross my mind at all. All I could think was there's something funny about Miss Casey. At that point, I was very much in the is Miss Casey a robot category. Like, it's like, she's so strange and she doesn't act like a normal person. Is she like a robot? Is she an AI? Is she not a real person? So when they showed this picture, I was just like, oh my God.
Crazy. Yeah. And I wasn't even sure if Miss Casey I wasn't even convinced that if she was severed or not until just the last episode where Miss Cobell mentions her being a part-time innie. So then that we were going to revisit this.
Yep.
Now in this context, we know her outie form is believed to be dead. So does part-time innie mean she just gets turned off and she goes to sleep?
Question.
Or like, what is happening? Where does she go? She can't leave. If she leaves and anybody sees her, like, she's supposed to be dead.
Question. Great question. Like, I'm just like, don't know.
Right? And that brings me back. This was another time I almost mentioned it, because when we were looking at the maps and we were trying to figure out what the Lumen housing was, and like there's houses, are there like sleeping quarters on the severed floor? Are they separate from Lumen? Are they within the building? Does Casey live there because she doesn't have an outie home to go to?
I'm definitely starting to believe that's what that is. And when PD talks about there are severed people who never leave, is it because they can't leave because they're technically dead? And now it's like, okay, now I have even more questions. Can severed chips reanimate people? What does that look like? Are these like some form of Frankenstein monsters? Like, do they have any awareness of their life before?
Didn't even think of that. Like, she died in a car crash. From the glimpses that we've gotten of flashbacks, it wasn't like fiery flames where there would be no body. So like, who did Mark bury?
Because like, yeah, we don't know what the funeral procedure was. So like, did he consent to her being an organ donor and doesn't get the body? Did he consent to her being cremated and presumes that the body was disposed of?
Yeah, he just has some ashes. He just got somebody ashes.
Or did they lie about the car accident? Did they maybe make it seem like she did die in a fiery car crash, but actually her body was retrieved? So maybe he thinks there was no body. What? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I didn't even think about like, how did they get her? How did they?
Because the only thing I can think, and we still don't know. I mean, maybe she is a mimic. Maybe they've found a way to clone. I don't know. But like, for all intents and purposes, she looks like Gemma. We don't know if she has any of Gemma's memories or life knowings prior to Lumen. We only know what we've seen of Miss Casey. And so it's like, okay, who is she? What is she? Like you said, how was the body retrieved? The only thing I can think is like, was she declared brain dead? And that's
then
how they're able to get the body. Like, I don't know if you sign a waiver. I don't know. Because was he too distraught to know what the heck happened to her? I don't know. Like, I don't know. What went into that?
Like, I'm so confused.
Yeah, I have so many questions. But again, now we're seeing a little bit more of Cobell's long game. And I have even more questions about what the heck is going on, because it's like, okay, now you're literally dangling the carrot in front of the horse, trying to see if he will indeed recognize it as a carrot. And it's like, what is this game you're playing? Like, is this about the severance chip? Are you maybe hoping that he does remember her? And if that's the case, is there a reason for that? Are you hoping that the chip is reversible for some reason?
Right. Are you testing theories that you have based on what has happened with Petey? I don't know. I also think back to the wellness center scene, and I don't think I registered anything, but it makes me wonder if Mark sculpting the tree ignited anything in Miss Casey, because that was like a moment of like, oh, he's definitely referencing something his Audi experienced. He just doesn't know why. But I wonder if, because that's a shared experience between them, I wonder if that stirred anything in her
also
too.
Is the reason that she let Mark go off with Helly because something connects about him being trustworthy or safe to her?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh dear.
Oh, you guys, let me tell you, this unraveled so many threads in my brain and still is. And there's still so much more to come.
I remember getting to this episode and feeling like, wait, did I not pay attention to something leading up to this? I was like, Rodnesha, did I miss something? Or are you just as confused as I am? This is shocked as I am.
I mean, if you missed it, I missed it, because I was not prepared. I was shooketh, as the kids say. Oh my gosh. And again, it just leads to so many questions and so many more things of like, what is Lumen? What is this place? Boy, oh boy, we've got a lot to barrel through, and we've got what, 2 more episodes?
2 more episodes, and we've got a couple more extras coming for you too, bonus episodes. But yeah, 2 more episodes of the season. But yeah, with that is the end of this episode. Defiant Jazz, we told you it was a doozy. Please rate, review. 5 stars would be lovely.
5 stars would be lovely.
Share with your friends. This is a show that is just like slowly gaining more and more momentum. So, you know, if you know somebody that hasn't started watching Severance yet, bring them along and tell them to listen to this podcast.
Get a friend, you guys. Watch it with a friend, because this is such a show that's the water cooler type show, you know? That is all for this week's episode. Thank you for joining us. We love having you with us. This has been the UUR. And remember, trackball type, switch type, flip type, hold, boom.
Boom.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the UUR with me, Rodnesha Green, and my co-host, Callie Thomas. You got a question for us? Want to talk theories, share memes, or maybe you just want to connect? You can follow us at the UUR Pod over on Blue Sky or Threads, or you can email us at theuurpod@gmail.com. See you soon. Innies unite!